Hello, welcome to stream number 93, or episode number 93, in the series where I am programming an NES game. Tonight I'm doing it live on Twitch, but always from scratch. So today is the streaming night on Thursdays, where I'm going to try and keep these relatively short, like about an hour, maybe an hour and 20 at most. And like I said, when I announced this, keep the other programming videos sort of longer, and then do summaries as we hit sort of the larger milestones. So just to recap from the last recorded video that was posted on YouTube, I had gotten all the attribute stuff working, so the tiles are now the appropriate colors, and the background collisions are working again. If you'll recall, the what's that batch file called? So if you'll recall, tool projects assets png bumper dot metatile. Really? Oh, yeah, shooter assets. So from last time, I had worked on getting the collision on this grid to work properly with the 2x2 tiles, and so that's working. All the sprite collision stuff that I had programmed is working okay. That didn't need to change. So I wanted to tackle a few things tonight. The first thing I want to look at is why the asset tool is so unreliable in the way that it is handling paths of things. But also answer questions as people ask them while I'm doing that, since we are live here. So to answer MDTA UK, your question was about the collisions related to the meta tiles here. And so right now the background collision is specifically hard-coded for the explosion. And the reason is because, at least at this point, my thinking is that the meta tiles will be used for the placement of barriers on the background. And so for things like power-ups and whatnot, those will be sprites or entities similar to the enemies. And so if we go back to the script window and we play this so we can see what our entities are, if we reset the game and run this, you'll see that, so player 3 is, entity 3 is a player, entity 4 was that cloud, and when enemies spawn on screen, they will have a spot in the entities list here similarly. And so just as we are doing collision detection where the enemies are checking to see if they collide with the player, causing both to explode, same thing with the bullets, we will do the same thing with power-ups, except it won't trigger explosions. It will trigger that you get whatever power-up that you get. Although I'm not even sure exactly what those power-ups would be and how extensive they would be as part of the game. I'm still working on some of that design. So they're kind of different parts of the code. Let's open that up and look at it for a second here. So the code that's dealing with the background collision is specifically related to, where is it? It's in here. So that is, oh, actually, you know what? No, it's in the player code. So in the player code, we are checking to see where we are on the meta tile, and then checking to see if we're over a meta tile that has collision, like the bumper, and then once we've confirmed that we've got a tile that has any collision, we check where we are within the tiles in the meta tile, and if we're over one of the ones that are marked for collision, then the ship will do the transition, or that entity transitions over to the exploded state, essentially. One thing that we should probably do is also change the game state to something like, player died, so it allows for the explosion to play, and then waits for a certain amount of time after that, maybe triggers different music, and then resets the level back to the beginning, potentially, removing the number of lives you have left, that sort of thing. That explains it well. Thank you. I'm guessing you will have a player state, so the player has been killed. It changes the game state to death or game over. Yeah, exactly. So right now it's just transitioning the entity over to the explosion entity, but it should also set the game state like we have. Right now we have, the load title screen, load new game, playing game. So we want to, add a new game state into here, and then flip over either to loading the game again, or to a game over screen, and then back to the title screen. Hey, Player's Guide. Thanks. Yeah, I mean, got a long way to go, but excited to get more done and actually have an artist working on it, and provide some more stuff once I have a little bit more fleshed out in the way the game is going to work. So, and we've gone past the bounds of the level. So I had put in, just to kind of prevent any sort of weirdness. Not that this isn't weird, but I had changed the level up a little bit so that there is actually, similar to what we had before, just a row of collidable tiles. So even if you make it to the end there, the sprite will collide with this and explode, and then it would restart the level. We gotta put some logic in here that it doesn't try and read from this and maybe uses some sort of default meta tile to fill in this space, or stops the camera so that it doesn't look like we go into this weird sort of people call the I forget what it was. Was it the negative worlds in Super Mario Brothers, when it's just basically they trick the game engine into going into a spot it shouldn't, and so it's just kind of garbage. That's where we're at right now with the way the camera is scrolling. But one of the things that's been bothering me as we have done this is that I can't get the export process and some of the other processes to work reliably without doing things like providing the full paths. And I'm trying to, and I'd really like to fix that, because it shouldn't matter if I use full path or relative path. It should just work, and that's going to become a problem as we go. And I mean, obviously we can work around it, but I'd like for it to not be something that I have to mess with, because for example, like this, I can't put the relative path to the meta tile. I believe that if I do that, it will fail to load it. Oh, that actually worked. Wonder, Okay, maybe it's not as bad as I thought. I know the export, when I had done that, it didn't work if I didn't specify, or at least I thought it didn't, if I had specified a relative path. Let's see. Assets, what was I? Shooter.text. I guess I should put some sort of message that says it was successful or not, because it's not really clear. Just Does this return anything? No. Let's make this return. You could have map height and then stop scrolling when you reach that height with the colliding tiles further down, so then it explodes before the screen reaches the top, or just stop scrolling on death. So there's a few things there, right? So there is, I already have a player screen height. We're scrolling from bottom to well, it's bottom of the map, right? Looking at it visually, but it's actually the high point of the map from the perspective of the row count. So, essentially what you said is correct. Once the camera reaches the bottom part of the lowest row, it should stop. It shouldn't continue to scroll anymore. And as for player death, I mean, that's what the game state transition would be for. To player died, I would want it to. I like games where the background continues to scroll after you die for a moment. Sometimes it's cool because it reveals something that you didn't know was coming, and it makes you like really want to keep playing. And there's just, I don't know. I like that way to do it. Hey, Banchaku. Oh yeah, F-Zero's death animations, right? Like it what is it, glow and then sort of explode or something like that? I can't remember exactly what it was. I know what you're talking about, though. I've seen that. From the few times I played it, I saw that animation quite a lot. That's one of those games that I didn't have as a kid. I just picked up later on. So let's see. So return false here, and so with some of this stuff I've talked about while I was implementing it, that there's better checks we can do, and things that I should be checking, and error handling, and some of that is just down to I was trying to get it kind of done real quick, and because it's not something that I'm putting out as a professional product or something. It's okay if it has problems, because I can go into the code and fix it. Camera moves past it, the screen goes black, and fades in, facing back towards the smoking. Oh yeah, towards the smoking wreckage. Right, that's right. Like I said, that's not a game that I've played a whole lot. So, all right. So there was a problem exporting the project. So that's good. So that at least put out a message. So let's see. So there's only one place where we return false. And that is where the load map occurs. So, all right, well that's good. Let's take a look at what might be causing this. So, where does load map return false? So it goes, let's see where we might run into problems. So we can put some breakpoints. By the same token, you don't want the death animation to be too long and convoluted, because then it just aggravates the player. If the game is hard, they have to watch that same animation and sequence over and over again. If you want to do something like that, at least you should, have some sort of way of skipping it. So all right, let's see if I can't. I can't do that. I guess I can do that. Command. Let's change this. So instead of the project directory, and let me put this in a window here because otherwise I'm going to forget what it said. Let's put it into this. And then let's change this to a relative path and see what the problem of this is. There's a problem exporting the project. It still said that there was a problem exporting it, but it didn't hit any of these breakpoints. Okay. Why? Is it because... Let's see if we hit this. Okay, so we're hitting that. Is it because... Maybe that it can't open the file. So let's see. Else... You could switch palettes to make it grayscale or abruptly cut the music, slow the scrolling and all the entity movement. It doesn't have to be drawn out, but something visually before any game over or the remaining lives graphics appears on the screen. Yeah, there's a lot of options. I mean, right now, other than trying to figure this thing out, because it's just been annoying me that I have to work around it. There's so much more about the game design that needs to be worked out that right now I want to just focus on that. I mean, not that that stuff isn't important, but it's, relatively speaking, you're talking about sort of the icing on the cake, right? Like, it doesn't matter if the icing looks good. If the cake sucks, then it won't matter how cool my ending animation is. Alright, so if I'm in that, I'm surprised it's not able to open that. Just want to see what it returns. I'm going to delete this in a second. So don't freak out that I'm just allocating this random buffer. Although I don't know, has anybody freak out when I do these things? Except for me. Assets export. Oh, okay. So it's changing the folder to the export folder too early. That's what the problem is. And the reason I say that is because the freaking out part is because I mean, I know people get all agitated about programming practices, and I'm sure there are some people who look at this and go, why isn't he using object-oriented programming and stuff like that? And I mean, I could, but that just wasn't what I wanted to do. It was not a priority for me to go that route, just for my own reasons of not wanting to overly complicate the implementation any more than I already do. I mean, because you can build all sorts of interface classes and abstract classes and stuff like that, and I know how to do it. I've done it a million times. It's just not, I don't know that it's really necessarily the most clear way to go. All right, are we back in the location that we want to be in? Yes. Okay, good. So that helped. Now I know why that's not opening that file properly. So let's... We don't need those breakpoints anymore. Well, actually, you know what? We might, because we haven't even gotten to the point where it was loading the file yet. Let's take a look at this and see if this is going to be problematic. And this is okay. We don't need that anymore. Should be using Ajax canvases on CDN. What's wrong with WinForms in C#? I don't know. I mean, nothing, I guess. The thing with all of that is I actually really like working with Tiger, that image library we're using. It's really simple to get what you want. And early on, and I don't know if you had been watching it at this point, MDTA UK, I wanted to build an immediate mode GUI for the asset tool. Just because, I don't know, because I wanted to, and in the end, I realized that building a GUI from scratch, while, you know, it wasn't necessarily super hard to do, it just wasn't the focus of the project, and it was taking up too much time. So I just decided I wasn't going to do that anymore. But I still like using Tiger, and it's good for the drawing that it's doing when you load up the meta tiles and the sprites. It's always faster to do it with what you know most. Yeah, I mean, and I use a lot of C# these days at work, so it's not like I don't even know how to do that. In fact, going back to C and C++ has been sort of just a refresher for me, because it's been a while. Let me see, about 7 years since I've had to do that professionally. In my previous job, I was doing way more C and C++. This current job, I'm doing for the newer stuff all C#, and we use Microsoft's platform. So watched all the videos, even if I didn't understand every step in the decision. But I remember you saying you wanted to keep the code as close to the game code, so no object-oriented conventions. Yeah, I mean, again, I don't know that the OOP stuff would have hurt. It was just a choice to do it a different way than I would have at work. There are certainly benefits to structuring things in an object-oriented way when it comes to being able to do things like interfaces and whatnot. But, you know, we accomplished the same thing way back when I first started with this, and I built these, where is it? Oh, did it export all that stuff into that directory? I'll have to look at that in a second, but so there's this Win32 platform layer, and you know, it's abstracting away the you know, the underlying file system access stuff, and you know, I've got this structure. Oops, that was the wrong key. Where I've just got the struct that's defining all these functions. I mean, that could have easily been a class. In the end, it becomes all 1 and 0, so OOP is not the only way to program things as long as it's working. I don't see an issue for personal use. I see a lot of WinForms and Qt game editing tools out there for ROM hacking, but that's a reverse process, whereas you're making a game tool to build the game stuff. Yeah. I mean, at the end of the day, people use what they're most comfortable with, like Bonchiku said. So I didn't want to go with something I was totally unfamiliar with, but I did want to use something that was maybe a little bit different than what I've been using sort of day to day. So what did I do? Are these old files that I had in here? I guess they are. They're all 917. I guess I don't really need these to be here. Never noticed them before. They must have exported that way at one point. And, let's see. Make sure I don't delete anything I need. All right, that all looks good. Well, yeah, that's the other thing with the debugging. I do really like the Visual Studio debugging tools compared to some of the other options that are out there. So why is this still showing that in the project? I'll have to reopen that and see. Especially like some of the legacy web debugging tools driving, or lack of those tools drives me crazy. Like I know there are some debuggers for things like PHP. I've never found them to actually do anything useful for me or even work very well. So it's kind of hard to get into doing stuff in that world when the tools are not particularly good. It's one thing I like about C# is you still get the same sort of nice support for the debugging tools and whatnot, even if there are some other issues. Alright, so this export happened not today, so where did it export that code? That's what I need to know. Export map. So after it loaded the map, it changed it to the export path, or it should have. So let's see where it put us. Assets map 1 export. That's no good. Did it actually make that folder? I don't think it did. Let's see where it thinks it is after that change of directory. I should... Anyway, so... same thing, I just want to see where it thinks it is after we do that change of directory. See if we get any insight. So it's actually, oh, it exported it all into here. I mean, that's eventually where it has to go anyway, but that's not where it should have gone. So Alright, so what's the problem? So map file prefix, let's take a look at what that actually is coming into. Export file name, map file prefix, assets map 1. Why? So I guess I was expecting it to be something that it's not here, which is where most bugs come from. You have expectations of things that are not true. Okay, so the issue is, if it's a relative path, this is going to fail. So let's do this. That's not actually a full path. How would I check that? Or how would I know how to get the current directory, and I know what map file full path is. What I ideally should be doing, I guess, is before calling this export map, I should be getting converting that to a let's see, this is the map project file name, and then if we go to that for a second here, so that's not fully qualified, which is okay. I don't have any problem with that. That's why, or fully qualified. It's not an absolute path, right? So in load project, what I should have it do is force everything to be absolute path, so that we have a everything consistent. So when we read the level file, let me see. So I thought I implemented something for if the file exists. Yeah, so that checks if the file exists. But that doesn't give me, does it? That also should be probably moved into the platform code, but let's just take a look at this here. Figure out what this, I think this just checks if you have. Okay, so if the file doesn't exist, then it returns an error. That's why I was using that. So what I really want to do, what does stat give me? Gives me a structure, a stat structure. What does that have in it? I want something that's going to give me the full path of the file and not just a partial path. Where is it showing the definition of that struct? Or is it not? Followed by sysstat. Well, we can just include that and take a look at the actual structure in the header file. See if that gives us what we're looking for. Oh, wait, these are the fields. Okay. Mode, time, drive number of disk containing the file, drive number, always 1, bit mask. No, that's not what I'm looking for. Let's see. Let's see if Google will help me. Windows C relative to absolute path. Get full path name A. Perform this operation. Transact. Okay. This parameter gonna be short. This function merges the name of the current drive and directory with the specified file name to determine the full path and file name. It also calculates the address of the file name portion. Okay, that's what I need. Do I want to do this here now? You know, since we're working on this, we might as well. So let's do this. So NES asset tool get absolute path, and then we're going to take file name, destination. Oh, that can't be a const. Character pointer destination, and then UN32 max max buffer size. And then let's do that. So NES asset tool get absolute path, and then get absolute path. Okay, so that's that, and then I'll just do it here. Alright, since this is how we do it in Windows, let's just get full path name A. And we've got our file name, buffer length is max buffer size, destination. And then what is that? File part? Is that just the file name, or what is this? A pointer to a buffer that receives the address of the final name component in the path. So it's a pointer to a pointer. That parameter can be null. Yeah, we don't care. I don't care about the name of the file so much in this. I should spell file name correctly. All right, and then all right, so that's good. So now we have that in our system hooks. Let's move this also. Since we're in here. Doesn't hurt. And then this is going to break stuff, but it should be relatively simple to fix. Where are you in 32? Just do that, and this should be this. Okay, cool. So we've got that back the way I wanted it to be. So now load project. Let's do this. So for all of these, what I need to do, so instead of this, where we are, what are we doing here? So we've got the map file name, string copy, current working path into that, then slash, and then the token. Let's do hooks. Get absolute path, and we want that to go into map file name, and then we use token, and the max buffer size is, what is that? I don't know. Where did I define that? Map file name. Oh, map file. Max file name size. All right, let's make sure that works. Let me get rid of this bookmark. Oh, right. No. System hooks. So let's do this. File exists should become systemhooks.file exists. And let's replace all of them, and then one this one will be broken, but that's okay. Okay, that was easy. All right, so we've got this is empty, and then the token is map1.json. And let's see what we got back. We got nothing. So why did we get nothing? Because it is the current working path is missing. So we still need to do a little bit of finagling here, right? We want to well, in this case, then, if we do that, if we're going to do it this way, I guess this doesn't need to happen here, because that actually works then the way that we want it to. What is this doing? This is constructing. Oh, that's silly that I wrote that. I guess I forgot. Okay, well, so temp is the file, and we want to do system hooks dot get absolute path temp destination. No, it's going into temp. The oh, fine. We'll make this work. Just give me a second. Temp. So the issue with what we have here is this won't work for the way this is implemented, because I don't believe it's going to like using excuse me, I don't think it's going to be okay with using the same buffer for the file name as the destination. So let's make a temporary buffer called temp destination. Thank you. All right, so that's going to go into there, and then what we'll do is we will copy it into destination. And would limit the size, of course, to whatever max buffer size is. And that should be that. Right? And this should be character 255. So, what are you talking about? Is it? Oh, do I not need this? Oh, I guess I don't need that. Having an argument with the compiler about something that's irrelevant. Okay. All right, so that'll give us the ability to do that because it'll put it into a temporary buffer first and then copy that result into there, so we don't have to worry about the function doing something where it's manipulating the memory it's reading just in case. So let's make sure that that looks okay. So we have temp right now, it's just that relative path, and we get back the full path. Excellent. That was what I wanted. Cool. So let me stop this for a second. You can actually get rid of this call because this was me sort of manually pulling this all together. You know what? I'll comment it out in case I ever need it. I don't think I will for anything else, but doesn't hurt to keep it around just in case. System hooks dot get absolute path, and then it is so let's see. So the parent path, and then source file name, and then what is the length of, wait, what am I trying to put this into? I'm trying to put this into source file name, so that means that it is max source file name that I want to pass. Oops. Whoa, 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 whoa. What are you doing? Okay, let's take a look at that, make sure that's looking okay. Get absolute path is, oh right, I gotta fix that one too. System hooks. So same thing here. It's basically I'm just updating the path that's in there to be the absolute path. Less code is better code. Yeah, it's harder to make mistakes when you have less code. All right, so we confirmed this one was working, but just to confirm again, yep, that looks good. And this, okay. What is this? Okay, so this still needs to get the absolute path, so I'm going to leave that breakpoint. So this has a relative path, and now, yes, now it's got the full path. Excellent, that's great. And then that failed. All right, let's take a look at why. So the full path here is shooter tilesets bumper.json. Assets tilesets bumper.json. Why does it think that doesn't exist? Probably just a bug in my code here. let's see what it says when. So I'm pretty satisfied that's okay. File name. Locals. Returned -1. Access return -1. Explode.sprite. So that would say file does not exist. Why? If file exists, then memcopy file to current item count. Replace file extension. So I assume this is returning false for all of them. Why is that broken? This was working, I thought. Let's see, return. Each function returns 0 if the file has a given mode. The function returns -1 if the named file does not exist or does not have the given mode. And the mode is existence only 0. That is rather strange. File name. Projects shooter. Oh, it's missing the assets base path. Why is that? Let's go into load project and look at this for a moment. All right, so it says png explode.sprite, and then it's shooter png shooter. There's no such path. Assets png. How is... I'm confused. Is it not... Is it not doing it based on the actual existence of the get full path name? Is it just doing it based on... Let's see, retrieves the full path and file name of the specified file to perform this operation. Transcript. Okay, the get full path name function is not recommended for multi-threaded applications or shared library code. Can be short or long file name. This string starting Windows 10 Unicode version. Buffer length file part. If the function succeeds, the return value is the length and string copy buffer. Too small. Function fails for any reason, return value 0. Merges the name of the current drive-in directory. Oh, the current drive-in directory with the specified file name to determine the full path and file name of the specified file. It also calculates the address. This function does not verify the resulting path and the file name are valid, or that they see an existing file on associated volume. Okay, so that's the problem. So it doesn't actually care if it's correct. It just turns it into what it would be if it were there. So if the file name is png explode sprite, it's just taking it and putting it under the current path. Even though So the problem is that the assets file, or the level file, is not under that base folder. So what we should do to make this work let's do this. Okay. Parent. Get parent path of what is this source file? Okay, so parent path, max file folder name, map file name, or project file name it should be. And then change the path to parent path. We should also we have current working, so what we can do at the end is go back to I think that will work. Assuming, let's see, does the file name coming in include the .json? No, I think I rename it assuming that it has to be there, and it does check the existence. Let's see, current working path is assets. Well, that's no good. Current working path assets. Why? Interesting. Why did it do that? It probably did that because it got the parent path of the file. Yeah. Okay. So we'll fix that as well in a second, or let's do that now. Okay. So current working path. Where does that get set? Get file path of the project file name, and then get system hooks, get absolute path of current working path. So just make sure that we have a absolute path for that. I reverse the order, so that will allow us to do what we want to do. So let's see. So the file name is assets. We get the full name, and it is now shooter assets, and then we return that back. All right, so then if we keep running, we are going to get the parent path. I don't know if that's going to work. Will that work? It looks like it did. Okay. Stream valid. Read all text. Project file. Null. Open text file. Project file name. Oh, because that's also relative. Okay, so the project file name. Oops, I hit the wrong key again. So, project file name, where are you? That's here, so let's do system hooks, Get an absolute path of that too. Just so that that's got an absolute path on it as well. Typing the correct things. Okay. Yep. Shooter assets. Yep. Okay. So now we're in here. We have a current working path. We've got the project file with the absolute path. So we changed that. Although I guess we don't need to do that. Yeah, we do. Okay. Just in case we've got things relative to that path of the file. So let's see. So we got the project file name that got opened correctly. So we're reading all that text, and now we're going to go through and so we get a sprite. We got this temp, and that's relative, and then we get shooter assets png explode.sprite, and that's correct. So I think that's okay now. I might want to add something to the absolute code to make a check for the existence of the file, sort of a safeguard, because that's the whole point of what I'm trying to do with it. I'm not sure I want to add that, but seems like that might be the safest way to go. Okay, so we're done with that. Let's see if we actually get files that come back as existing now. Yes, okay. So that's good. Alright, so now the map file full name, shooter assets map1.json, remove file extension, get file name. We copy that again. That's good. And then map file prefix. No, that is not okay. Why? Get parent path, map file prefix. Let's take a look at this part now and see what's going on. I kind of skimmed over it a little bit because it seemed like it was okay, but then going into it, it was not. So the map file full path is this, and the export file name gets copied, and then we remove the export file name extension, and then we just get the base file name. So I don't know, why would that not have been a problem before? Get parent path as assets, and then export file name. String concatenate these two things. Why? What is this actually used for? Why are we string concatenating that? So, all right, let's do this. So we get that looks good, and then it asserts that it exists. That's good. All right, so these are looking okay. Shooter assets, tile sets, parent path, yeah. Okay. Get tile set source. image file name, full path. That's not okay. Y is... Let's go back to this. Something is wrong with the way that's working too. Hey, Zorchenheimer, how's it going? We're just messing around with some of the weirdness that I've built into this export tool. I'm trying to fix it so that it's not having a problem with the with the weirdness of using relative paths versus absolute paths that was breaking it. So I'm just trying to wrap that up here since I'm at about a little over an hour. I want to wrap this up tonight. So let's see. So get tile source. So the source file name is that. The tile set name is tile set file name is that. So let's see. What's it trying to do? I don't even remember what this actually does. It's the parent path. That's that. Oh, and then it opens the tile set. Oh, it's supposed. It's okay. So it's looking for. It's looking for the source content of the tile set. So if we look at, for example, this guy, so it's going to pull, I assume, image. Yeah. So image has that in it, and then we remove the, or reconstruct the path properly based on the fact that it's escaped as JSON. And let's see, so then we've got, oh, it's right, /PNG. So we're in tile sets. We're going to go back to assets. We're going to go to PNG, and then we're going to go to that. So this is the source file name for bumper PNG, and this is the parent path. Oh, that's the problem, because I misused get absolute path here. After changing it. Okay, so source file name, except this is now wrong because we're not in the assets path anymore, which I guess, let's see, so we're loading the map. Would have thought that the current working path assets. Oh, is it because in the call, that's export? And let's see here. I guess it's because in the call to do this, I'm not changing to the directory of the map file, which means it's anything that I'm referring to that's relative to that is going to be broken. This is kind of a pain supporting these relative paths. I almost don't want to do it because of all of this, but it's fine. All right, so let's, before we do anything here, let's string copy into our Yeah, we don't have a good spot for it. Let's just create a buffer here for a moment. And copy into that. And should be that. Right? No? No. Okay. That should be file folder name, and then this should be map file full path. And then get absolute path in the system hooks. Working path, max file folder name, and then change the directory to working path. And then similar to what we did before, well, I guess we don't technically have to do, yeah, we don't have to change back. Well, just to be complete, let's do that. When we're done, just as part of our cleanup, go back to the current working path. All right, let's see if we start getting some better paths here now. So we've got the source file name, we've got the absolute path, and that's still freaking wrong. Why? When we export working path. Oh, dummy. No. Get the absolute path and get parent path. I can't type. I can't type tonight. All right, so let's see if this is going to work right now. No, why? Assets, so it should have changed to assets, okay. And then why is it not the right path? Source file name is, so it's assets. Oh, I see, because the tile set path is different than the path of tile set file name is that. We're going to do sort of the same thing here. Get parent path and then change the directory to the parent path. Again, because we want to support relative paths here, and maybe I'm missing something in terms of the right way to call this. But the current functionality for getting the absolute path of something depends on where you currently are. So if you're not in a in the right location, you're going to get the wrong path back, and it doesn't care that it's not right. Let's see, is that the only place I'm calling that? Okay. So let's see now. So the current working path that was passed in, or working directory, was assets. We changed to the tilesets path. So now what we should get is assets PNG bumper. Okay, good. And then we're going to go back to the original path. So that's good. And then this will hopefully be the same. Yes. Okay, good. So that's all the way it should be. This is still weird, but I don't know why. I don't know why it's working that way. Maybe because of some assumptions I made earlier about the way the path structure was being passed in. So obviously it can't create that path because multiple levels of it don't exist. So let's go back to the beginning of this part here and see if we can sort this out. So basically we're getting the map file full path, which is the actual full path name. And what we want to end up with is we want to create a, let's see, so we want to make the prefix be the export path that we're working with. So export file name, I don't know why did I ever put that on the export? I'm not even sure. That might just have been a bug that it didn't work previously, and so as a result it was just putting it in the exports path. It just happened to be, because that seems wrong. So let's see, so the export file name is that, and we remove the extension and we get export file name is just map1, which is fine. And then we're going to copy the full path again and get the parent path, which is assets, and then we're going to reload the map, and then we get the prefix is assets export, and then we try to make it, and then we change the directory to it, which is correct. And now we should start exporting correctly to that folder. Let's see if these got updated. They did. So that looks good now. So now that actually worked. And so I should be able to, from here, I should be able to get rid of all of this stuff and just say export like that, relative, and it didn't work. Assets. Oh, all of it went into there, which is no good. Well, some of this actually needs to stick around. That and that and that, and I think the rest can go away. That is bizarre. All right, so the export of /assets/shooter.txt works here, or appeared to work. So here, let me so I just run the export. So that export partially worked, at least. We've got this weird bin file, which I don't know what that is. And that, oh, you know what? They're probably supposed to be map1.bin and map1object.bin because, okay, so let's take a look at that here. Is that what that was? Oh, okay. I remember now. I remember why it was doing that. So it's, okay. So what's happening is the parent file path is coming back without the trailing slash, and then it is not able to add the prefix. Okay, yes, that makes sense. At least as far as those files go, the .bin and the obj.bin, those should not be it should be map1 dot. What are you doing? So, yeah. Okay, that's fine. Oh, wait a minute. No, so that's still not exactly right. Map file. Am I using the map file prefix anywhere? No, I don't. To call this, I mean. No, so this should just do like that. Let's see. Anybody else have any questions before I wrap up for the evening? While I'm trying to figure out why this is, why I did such a bad job with this. All right, so that's the prefix, and then that should now be well, that's still not going to export it correctly because, yeah, so it puts it into map 1. Well, that's not awful. Let's see, did it actually work, though, for the other files? Let's get rid of all that. Export file name. And then, well, it can't do that until it changes the directory, and then it can do that. All right, let's try that. All right, so we have, that looks correct, and then we'll move that into this, and it should yep, it replaces 32 files, which is the right number of files from last time, and then we do a make, and it didn't scream at me about anything in that. And let's see if when we load this up, the game so far looks correct. So far so good. I'm debating if I want to crash the ship or if I want to wait for the enemy to appear, or both. There, I did both. Okay, that's looking pretty good. Nice. All right, so that seems to have worked. Now the question is, if I go back to the export path and I nix all of that and then I run this here. Aha, good. All right, then we got, I think, everything that we were supposed to, and then put that here. 32 files. Cool. So I think I fixed all of that. Let me rerun the make because the files were still copying. Good. Okay, that's looking good. Hey, Mr. Samoflange. Yeah, made a decent amount of progress here. Got some enemies. Got some backgrounds. We've changed over to 16 by 16 meta tiles instead of the 32 by 32, so we can have some more detail in the backgrounds. There's still quite a bit to go, but it's actually kind of taking shape now. You can actually hit the bad guys. Oh, I got destroyed. Yeah, I'm happy that I'm making some progress with this. So for next time, for the next explosion animation, that was so satisfying to get that working. It's something like really visceral about seeing that actually have an impact. I don't know why, it's just kind of fun. But for next time, what I want to do for the next video I post, I want to hit start hitting some things related to the design of the enemies. I also have to start thinking about how we're going to handle the levels, because the levels, as they are pretty big, and so we're going to have to start making some technical decisions related to whether the game will fit in a, you know, sort of simplistic approach of the data, or we're going to have a lot of banks for the data. Do we want to do something where we're using char RAM instead of just the ROM for the tiles, so that each level can have its own bank potentially? I don't know. I don't know what I want to do with that yet. Some of those are technical issues that we can kind of tackle later. Some of that might impact the game design. I want to focus more on the game design itself, though, because I've obviously spent a lot of time on the technical aspects of it, and the engine is working insofar as that now we can design backgrounds and have the enemies launch out of parts of the screen well enough to start testing like what kind of mechanics we want for the game. So for example, do we want there to be more enemies, or do we want there to be more enemies that fire bullet patterns, or some combination of the two? Some of the things I think I've talked about in the past are this sense of speed that we want the game to convey, which it doesn't really right now. I mean, that little cloud floating by to some extent, you know, might, if we do that enough, but, you know, something like having it that if you crash into something like that, that the explosion kind of whips down the bottom to the bottom of the screen could really easily convey speed. At the same time, this slow progress that we're talking about, or we're seeing here on the screen, is more suitable, I think, to like a high altitude section of the game, whereas with a section of the game where you're going to be at a lower altitude, because I want to have different sections of it sort of be different heights. Then the bottom has to move faster to really convey that, because obviously if you're moving fast and you're lower to the ground, you have that sense of speed. And so we can't have a lot of, I don't know that we'll be able to have a lot of unique background elements there without running out of space quickly. And if you've looked at games like, what is that called? Crisis Force? Then you've seen sort of what I'm talking about in terms of like repeated elements. They do a really good job of having repeated elements that don't look repeated, because they sort of vary it enough that it's not obvious unless you're looking for it. Looking at the comments here, Agitated Butter, thanks, I'm glad you're enjoying the Zero Pages. It's been kind of tough to pull all of that together, and video editing is one of those things that I actually like to do, but I always forget how much work it takes to take a video and produce it, especially to the level that I've been trying to do for the Zero Pages. So while they're, either 10 or 20 minutes of content related to programming the NES, the actual time that it takes to do the voiceover and pull together the material and do the video editing is quite a bit longer, many hours worth of work. And that's not to complain. I mean, it's just the reality of it. So I'm trying to, I know episode 4 people are asking for it and looking for sort of starter code on NES programming, and I definitely want to get that working, get that work done soon. Oh, I blew up. That'll be something that hopefully in the next couple of weeks I'll have out there. I just have to think about the right way to present the material that isn't necessarily, text flying in like it has in some of the other segments, because I think that's less conducive to learning code. MDTA UK. Are there slowdown issues with animated background meta sprites, like if you made the water move? So no, generally speaking, making something like the water move, unless you're going to do something where you're actually changing the tiles in and out, generally there are a couple of ways you can do that. One is you have char RAM, and you go in and you modify the actual RAM tiles in memory, and so you're not changing the background, you're just changing the content of the tile. The other way you could do that is through bank switching for the char data. If you didn't want to use the char RAM, you flip through your banks and you have animation that makes it look like the water is moving, but instead you're just flipping through the backgrounds. And so actually, do I have Metal Storm on here? I don't think so. I might. Let me look real quick, because Metal Storm is an awesome example of of how to do that. There we go. So Metal Storm is an awesome example of how to do the bank switching to make an animated effect. If you've never played it, this is a great game. So you'll see that there are sections of the game where it looks almost like there's a parallax effect. I just got to get to it here. Okay, so you see like how this section looks like it's moving at a different speed, and then what is essentially the foreground background. You can see that animation is happening in here, and it's just through bank switching. It's switching out the banks and giving the illusion of animation, even though these tiles aren't even changing. They're just the bank is changing, and so it gives that effect, and it uses that throughout the entire game. And yeah, I mean, it has such an awesome visual effect, and I mean, it's in some cases it's actually, in a case like this, it's kind of wasteful, historically speaking, for the way they did that to create this effect. But I guess because they didn't really need all that much space for other assets, they could do that without it having too much of an impact. This game gets tough as you move on. But anyway, so you can see what a really nice effect that has as you play the game. It just really makes it feel like a much more advanced game than it is. Of course, I'm sucking as I'm explaining this right now, but so anyway, that's something we could certainly do to achieve the same effect if we wanted to. And in fact, Crisis Force does the same thing for some of the animations it uses, where it has like this chasm that opens up that looks like it's it's scrolling very slowly, and it's really a very convincing effect because it makes you feel like you're flying over something with a lot of depth. Oh yeah, we're at the enemy. We're not going to get to I don't know if I'm going to be able to get to the next level here to show you the same. Anyway, it's a tough game, but it does some. I think it's 2K chunks. I don't know if it's. I don't remember what it's actually swapping out, but something along those lines. I think Solstice did the same clever thing too, with having sprites appear occluded by changing the sprites. Yeah, that could very well be. The nice thing about doing NES programming today in the modern times that we're in is that the data, the ROM data, whatever you want to call it, is pretty cheap. In fact, it's more expensive to get the smaller amounts than it is to get the larger amounts, and so we have the opportunity to have a lot more space available than you might have previously, without it being prohibitively expensive to make the game. So that gives us a nice opportunity to maybe take advantage of some of those effects, or leverage something like CharRAM to have a better handle on making really unique environments, which I really am looking to do. So anyway, that's kind of a long-winded explanation of what's coming up next. So that's where we're at right now. Monday I'll put together another video of what's going on with some of the game design stuff. I'll work on that and post that on YouTube. And then next Thursday we'll do another stream and go through some more stuff, and hopefully people will come with questions. And so thanks for watching. As always, if you want to reach me on Twitter at Clairvis, I'm there. And I'm on Nintendo Ages Zelius, and feel free to reach out to me in any of those places, including my email, or post on the comment section in the video on YouTube. Lots of people have been doing that, especially for the Zero pages, and I definitely appreciate the feedback and that people are enjoying the content. Thanks, and I'll see you next time. Yeah, no problem, MDTA UK. It's why I'm doing this, to answer questions and help people out. So no problem, and thanks for always being on the streams. I appreciate it. You and Bonchaku and several others, Mr. Samuel Flange, you're on pretty often too, and so it's nice to see the same people joining in, and hopefully we'll get some more regulars in here as we progress and the game looks a little bit more polished and done. I know people kind of look at it right now, and because it's NES, it's kind of looks very, very basic, but getting there, a lot of work has been done. And so thanks for watching. See you next week, and have a great weekend.